Well, welcome to another edition, of course, of My Life in Football. And really pleased to say that somebody that I'm going to get to know a little bit more, I suppose, as the season goes ahead this year. And also, sensational player as well. And of course, joining us today, of course, is Mickey Parcell. And I'm really pleased to have you on, Mickey. And I mean, I suppose we always start this off, and we've sort of started off at the end and then going, sort of skipping and going back and then coming back to it. So I suppose everybody knows that you just left Hornchurch and coming to join the mighty Towners again. And I mean, that must be like a big homecoming for you.
Yeah, obviously, firstly, thanks for having me on, Dave. And it's good. I mean, I suppose it sort of fills me with a bit of sense of pride, if you like. Enfield was the first club that I played for in non-league once I'd moved back from Torquay, which was the club that I'd done my scholar at and turned pro for a year at. And I was at Enfield for 4 years. Had 4 fantastic years there under 2 different managers. And then moved on to Hornchurch and was there for 4 seasons. But yeah, it was sort of heard that there might have been a chance of going back to Enfield. And once I'd had the conversation with the new manager, it just encouraged me, and it sort of cemented that decision that it was the right time to go back and hopefully help towards rebuilding the squad, which I think it is going to be a rebuild. Obviously, Andy was there for 6 seasons, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously he sort of moulded a group of players, if you like, to play the way that he wanted to play, and had a really good group down there. But obviously, as people will see on socials and from Enfield's website, that pretty much most of the players have gone. So I think there's maybe 5, 6, 7 of the lads that were there last year. But yeah, obviously Gavin's looking to bring in some new assets and try and get us obviously back towards the top of the table at some point. So,
and of course, as we're recording this, the fixtures come out Thursday, and not being funny, it's going to be some season this year. And I mean, that I've just seen Billericay drawing 0-0 with Leyton Orient, and that was the full strength side. And there's some incredible teams in that league this year. It's probably going to be the toughest Step 3 league in the country, I would have thought, this time around.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did say, actually, I made a couple of comments maybe last year to various different people that I thought that the standard of the league had potentially dropped a little bit from when I first played in it, say 7 or 8 seasons ago, when you had the likes of Tonbridge and Hampton and Richmond and Dulwich, Billericay, of course, when they were sort of at the peak of where they were at. And it seems as though now, again, it's sort of come full circle and you've got those types of teams back in the league again. And yeah, it's looking like a real tough league. But I think that's a good thing from my perspective as a player. You like playing against big teams in front of big crowds against good players. And I suppose from a club point of view regarding Enfield, who might not quite be in the same position as some of those other clubs, maybe financially, will enjoy sort of putting themselves up against those so-called bigger teams and trying to get some results across the season. So
starting from the beginning, Mickey, I mean, where was the first time you started playing football?
Well, I suppose I've always kicked a ball since I can remember, like every other lad that's lived in England, I guess. I suppose my earliest memories of football were just either playing in the park behind where we live with my brother, or playing at school in the playground. But the first team that I signed for was a team called Whiteweb's Eagles. They were actually based, they were based where the new Tottenham training ground is now. So I was there for quite a few years. It was quite a sort of family-orientated club. Like, everyone was quite friendly, got on really well. My mum and dad had good friends there, and I played with their boys, etc. But yeah, they were bought by Spurs. I'm not sure what year it was. I think I was maybe sort of 10 or 11 at the time, for quite a big chunk of money. I think they paid about £1.5 million actually, to Whitewebs as a club. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, but the club sort of disbanded. I think there was a few age groups that continued to play, but obviously they didn't really have a base from. So yeah, I sort of came away from Whitewebs and signed for Brimsdown Rovers.
Oh, okay. And I mean, those Whiteweb pitches, though, were just like absolute carpets, weren't
Yeah. I mean, I think they were actually renowned for being
they?
one of sort of the best grassroots pitches in sort of Hertfordshire, if you like, or in London. They didn't actually. I mean, my dad always said he used to play for the first team, but I don't think they were ever like at a sort of
Yeah, I
standard
don't think
where we are now. But yeah, the pitches were like immaculate, and I suppose that is maybe one of the reasons why Tottenham took it over.
Because I remember going there plenty of times when I used to manage Waltham Abbey teams and going to White. It was always the one that you looked forward to going to because you knew that it was absolute carpet. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it was a good setup over there. It was like I said, it was a nice family orientated club. They had a nice little sort of bar and like hall for parties and stuff. We had a few parties. I think my mum or my dad had their 40th there, so it was good in that respect. They had a snooker hall there, so yeah, it was a really good club, and that was probably my earliest memories of football and just enjoying being there. Even like we turn up 2 hours before the game and be playing with your mates and then stay for 3 or 4 hours, probably more for mum and dad so that they could have a drink in the bar. But yeah, obviously it was good. That's what it's about when you're a kid, isn't it? Being outside and enjoying being with your friends and kicking a ball around. So
yeah, absolutely. So from there, what made you? Was it just a case of that the club sort of
I mean,
a bit. You went to Brimsdown.
Yeah, so I think at the time Brimsdown were actually playing in what was called the JPL League, I think the Junior Premier League or something, which was probably a bit of a step up from what Whitewebs was at the time. And didn't really know many of the boys that played for them, but yeah, went and signed for them and spent, I think, 2-3 seasons there until I was about 15. And again, another good club. I think obviously when you're them sort of ages and you're playing at a grassroots level, it's more about enjoyment. Yes, they're trying to develop players and push them in the right direction to maybe move on to the pro teams. But for me, I was never. I mean, I remember actually when moving on like a little bit forward. We'll touch on it in a bit, but when I actually went on trial to Torquay, I didn't even know what a scholarship was or what a YT was at that point, because to me it was just about playing with my mates on a Saturday or a Sunday and just enjoying it. It wasn't. I'd never even thought about being like a full-time footballer at that stage. So yeah, I used to play for Brimsdown, I think, on a Sunday, and then on a Saturday there was a point where I was playing at Ridgeway Rovers as well. So we used to sort of do a Saturday and a Sunday, and again just a grassroots team, but just good memories, and remember just enjoying my football at that stage.
One of those teams we could never beat at Waltham Abbey when I was with my team. It was always a nightmare.
Brimsdown or
no, Ridgeway Rovers.
Ridgeway,
absolute nightmare.
Yeah, well, we played at I think it was the Peter May Centre up in Walthamstow. Yeah, and again, like a lovely facility, really good pitches. And one of my memories actually from when I was there, we played a team called Interwood. Yeah, we played them in a cup game. I think it was maybe a quarter-final, semi-final. It went to penalties, and it was 29-28 on penalties we won. It literally went through the whole cycle 3 times. And I remember, I think my granddad still got like the newspaper clip from back then, so I have to try and dig that out from somewhere. But yeah, again, just another good memory and another good club that I played for as a child, if you like.
Well, how many sort of when he was playing sort of down there at Brimsdown and Ridgeway as well? I mean, how long did that sort of go on for before you moved on again? What sort of age?
Yeah, so like I said, I think Brimsdown came around when I started secondary school. So yeah, I would have been about maybe 12, 13. And again, at the time I was playing for Ridgeway, and actually played a little bit for East Thurrock as well. So I guess that was all sort of around the same time. Like I said, one was a Saturday, one was a Sunday. And then when I got to 15, I went and started playing for Hertford Town under 16s, it might have been, or maybe even under 18s at that point. And it was like a midweek league. So that's when I started, I don't know, maybe understanding the game a little bit more in terms of we were getting older, and obviously by that point you're being coached. The demands from the coach are a lot higher. You start to work out what you're going to be like as a player and the position you're going to play and what you're good at, maybe what you're not so good at. So yeah, I played for Hertford Town in a midweek league, and I think it's probably the main reason why I love playing during the week so much. Like even now, I love playing under the lights on a Tuesday. I mean, it's not so nice when you're doing Folkestone on a Tuesday night or something like
Off
that.
the Regis, yeah.
Yeah, with work in the morning. But even so, like the travel to get down there is a bit of a nightmare. But I love it. I love playing under the lights during the week, and that probably stems from that stint I had at Hertford, and that, funnily enough, is how it led on to me signing for Torquay. So the first team manager at Hertford at the time was a guy called Scott O'Donoghue, and he sort of acted as like an agent, if you like, for me at the time, and said, "Look, I think you're good enough to maybe step into the pro game, if you like, like going for a scholarship or an a YT." He said, "And I'd like to sort of put you on trial down at Torquay." And I mean, I'd never even heard of Torquay. I didn't know where it was on the map. And I
Not
remember
somewhere you want to go on a Tuesday night.
yeah, definitely. But we went down there. I was offered a week's trial. We went down there. I think it must have been October half term, because I was obviously off school. And I just remember it was just pissing down the whole week. It was cold, wet, horrible. I trained at the training ground, which was called Silhane, I believe. But it was good. Like, obviously, I was sort of on trial with what would have been the under-18 squad at that point. The lads made me feel really welcome. I was probably the first person they'd met from London, because at that point it was literally just local boys. Went back there again in the February half term, I think it was, and that's when I was offered a 2-year scholarship, which was brilliant. I remember me and a pal of mine, Freddie Palmer, we'd both gone down there again. He was from this way, and we were taken off at, I can't remember if it was half time or maybe during the second half, and we sort of looked at each other and thought, oh, maybe it hasn't gone as well as we wanted to. But as we stepped off, the youth team manager, a guy called Jeff Harrop, said, "Boys, you've been fantastic. You like really impressed us on your trial, and we'd like to offer you both a 2-year scholarship." And yeah, that's when I would probably say that's when my football career started, if you like. That's when I thought, right, this is time to try and make a go of it and really see sort of where I can get to, if you like.
So how old was you when you was offered that?
16. I would have turned 16 in the December, and that would have been the February the following year. So yeah, I'd have been 16 at that point. So
what's
yeah,
that like as a 16-year-old getting that sort of thing from a
I mean,
special club?
think,
Let's be honest, Torquay are they're suffering a little bit at the moment, but
yeah,
just they were a
yeah.
club.
I think at the time they were in League Two, and that's again, like, before that I didn't have a great knowledge of sort of the categories in the youth setup. Obviously, you have Cat 1 and etc. etc. And that's when I sort of started researching a little bit more and finding out a little bit more, and just thought that it would help my sort of growth, if you like, as a footballer, to understand the game a bit more. But yeah, I was coming to the end of secondary school, and I remember going back to school on the Monday and basically feeling like I'd made it already. Like you said, they were a League Two side. I think they were Cat 3 or Cat C. I can't remember if it's numbers or letters. And yeah, it was just a great feeling to know that I was going to be leaving school at 16 and be able to play football every day. And although it weren't a lot, get paid for it as well. So yeah, it was a good feeling. Obviously proud, happy, excited, nervous a little bit, I suppose, to not knowing what's ahead. Moving away from home was a big deal at that age as well. But yeah, just a great achievement for me at the time, because, as I said, I was just a park player that enjoyed playing football with my mates. I never even dreamed about being a full-time footballer at that point. So.
Were your parents there at the time as well when that sort of
Yeah.
my
mum and dad.
what were they like? What was their reaction?
Yeah, I remember they always sort of tell the story that they were standing on the opposite side of the pitch, and I think they probably thought the same as me in regards to when we got dragged off. They might have thought that, oh, maybe he's not quite ready for this, or not quite good enough, maybe. But they always say they remember sort of looking at me and Freddie, and we sort of went from maybe a glum face to the happiest faces they'd ever seen. So yeah, they were obviously happy and glad that it had paid off. Obviously, I think they must have taken time out of work to have been there. My mum works in a school, so I think the first time we actually went down there, it was just me and her. But yeah, they were over the moon, and obviously delighted to see their son happy with making an achievement.
So that was probably February time.
Yeah, so that was February. Obviously, like I said,
did you have to pick everything up and move there? Was it just
yeah. So I finished school. I finished like my GCSEs off and stuff. Got the results back for them, and they were okay. I mean, I was never really the brightest spark, but yeah, they were right. They were enough to, if that didn't work out, I could have sort of moved on to college or sixth form if you like. But yeah, I think must have been maybe mid-June, towards the end of July, that I moved down there. So yeah, sort of packed up everything that was in my bedroom, bought some new football boots, and my mum and dad moved me down there, and we lived at Torquay. I'm sure that they probably do it at other clubs as well, but the youth team players used to live in it was called the Goals Lodge. So there was, I think, 12 or 13 of us that lived in there. So yeah, packed up, moved down there. You used to share a room with one other, which was a lad called Sam Cheney, who had a bit of time at Enfield, if you remember the name. And yeah, it was just a good laugh, but obviously new experiences and not knowing kind of what you're stepping into, if you like.
So how did that go? So talk us through your time at Torquay.
Yeah, it was good, really good. I mean, in terms of where the first team were at that point, like I said, they were in League Two, I think, for my first year scholar, and that was good. That was a really good insight into what the pro game was about. There was sort of the odd occasion where we were asked to train with the first team, and that was like a big sort of eye opener to me, to the level that I would have to get to if I wanted to play at that standard. But yeah, everything that came with it, mate, to be honest. Obviously, like I said, the football side of it was great because I was playing football every day. I felt like I was improving, playing under sort of UEFA B and UEFA A licensed coaches. But also, I suppose, the life skills that I learned from having to live away from your mum and dad, if you like. I sort of learned how to cook and how to clean and just how to look after myself a little bit better. I learned how to drive whilst I was down there as well, which again is something that's helped me in life. So yeah, it was a really, really good time for me, especially during my sort of scholarship, my 2 years as a scholar. We went to college as well, 1 day a week, and got our level 2 coaching badges whilst doing like a sort of sports science degree at college. So yeah, it was good. It was really, really beneficial. And I sort of, people have mixed opinions on the FA and what they do for young lads, especially maybe after that transition of being a scholar. But whilst you're in that fold, it's brilliant what they do and what they offer to lads of that age.
Any stories that you can tell us then from your 2 years?
Yeah, so I think the one that probably jumps out at me the most was obviously where we lived in the lodge. There was a bloke that looked after us, a guy called Cedric, who sadly passed away. But we used to have a curfew, so it had to be in by, I don't know, let's say 10 o'clock or whatever it was, of a weekend. For all the right reasons, I suppose, being a footballer, if you like, and trying to make sure we were doing the right things. But obviously there were times where we didn't do that. And funnily enough, mine and Cheney's room was on the bottom floor, so we had a window that we could open up and jump out. And one night we went out, we came back, it must have been about midnight or something. We got caught, got in a bit of trouble, and nothing really came of it. So obviously we left it for a few weeks to make sure, in case they were watching out for us. But we basically came up with this plan that every time that we went out of a night, if you like, we used to always take a pack of batteries in our pocket, like a brand new pack of batteries. And if we ever got caught coming back, we'd say we'd had to go to the shop to buy a pack of batteries for our PlayStation controllers. And somehow it always seemed to work. But but yeah, I mean, loads of stories. Like I said, that was the one that jumped out to me the most. But yeah, some really good times, and met some lads that I'm still good friends with now. Got married a few weeks ago, and sort of, I think 2 of the boys that I lived with in Torquay were at the wedding. So I mean, that's the great thing about football as well, is you do meet some great people, and you do end up sort of having lifelong friends out of it. So yeah, some good times as a scholar.
So what was that like, putting on that yellow jersey? I mean, because that must have been special. Because I mean, they're
Yeah,
say decent outfit, Torquay, and I mean, putting that on must have still been, really.
yeah, it was really good, really good. I mean, I remember, obviously, as a YT, the kit was always different to what the sort of first team kit was. Not like majorly different, but slightly. But I remember sort of moving on, and when I actually signed my first pro contract, I played in a cup game, and that was the first time I'd worn like a shirt with my name on the back, and that stands out to me a lot. I mean, yeah, wearing the strip as a YT was great, and I was actually named the captain for the second year, which again was something that I was really proud of at the time. But yeah, when I first wore that shirt with my name on the back, that was a great feeling.
What sides did you come up against in that sort of leagues that you must have
So
been?
yeah, so again, as I said, it was categorized by, I guess, the level of the club in terms of where their first team were and financially how well off they are. But again, it was then regionalised as well. So we would play teams like Yeovil, Exeter, who were always our toughest match. They had a great youth setup, and lads that I played against that are now playing like a really good standard. Obviously, you got Ollie Watkins that is capped for England. He was the same age as me. I remember playing against him. A lad called Matty Grimes was a fantastic player. I think he's at Swansea now. And a few others. Again, Exeter are always the best team that we come up against. So yeah, Yeovil, Exeter, Plymouth. And then we ventured into Wales a couple of times, played Newport. That was always good. We enjoyed sort of the day out and the trip, if you like. And then some teams that were sort of closer maybe to this way, such as Oxford. So yeah, it was good. It was, as I said, it was categorized in sort of that southwest part of the country. But yeah, it was good. Great experiences. Played against, as I said, some fantastic players that have gone on to achieve great things in the game. But yeah, it was funny because it was always, I felt maybe probably looking back on it more now, that there was a lot of homegrown players in that area that to be honest probably would have done better things if they were maybe scouted by clubs further adrift. And that's nothing against clubs like Torquay, etc., because they worked with what they had and the budgets that they had. There was a lad that was in the year above me in the youth team, a guy called Dan Sullivan. I'm not sure if he's still at Taunton anymore, but he was by far the most technically gifted player that I've seen at that age. He was fantastic, unbelievable. Some of the things I saw him do on a football pitch, and I felt like he was one of them that if he'd have maybe got a chance at a club away from home, it might have benefited him a little bit more. But yeah, as I said, it was a great time for me, especially those 2 years as a YT. And obviously, as it came towards the end, it was that sort of nail-biting moment where you're sort of waiting to find out if you're going to be offered a pro or not. I think there was 7 or 8 like within my year, if you like. So second-year scholars at the time. One of the lads had already been offered his pro early, a guy called Jake Hutchins. Again, someone I stay in contact with regularly now. And then it was me and Sam Chaney that were both offered pro deals. He was offered a 2-year deal. I was offered a 1-year deal. So yeah, that was probably the best day of my life up to that point. Being told that he was being offered a professional contract and signing the contract, being shown your shirt with your name on the back. That was a real sort of proud day for me and my family.
So was that what was the most proudest thing to do? Was it being called into the office and saying, look, we're going to give you a 1 year deal, or calling your mum and dad and saying, look, by the way, I've just been told I've got a 1 year contract?
Yeah, yeah. I think the manager at the time was a guy called Chris Hargreaves. I remember going into the office to see him, and you try and sort of get a feel for it. I guess you probably either know or you definitely don't know, if that makes sense, walking into the door. And I was confident, I was positive, and I was hoping for the best, but I was probably in sort of the middle of that, not sure to thinking that I was going to get it. So yeah, I really wasn't sure, but yeah, I walked in and I can't remember anything that he said in that meeting, I'll be totally honest, other than we're offering you a 1 year deal. But I think coming out of the room and trying to hold my emotions together, I think the first thing I did when I picked up the phone to my mum and dad was just burst out into tears. So yeah, that was a real nice moment to sort of let them know, and I guess for them as well, a really proud day in their life to know that all that the time that they'd spent taking me to football matches when I was younger in the rain and sun and snow had all sort of paid off for that split second, if you like.
So what happened there? Did you go into that next season? I mean, especially
Yes.
as captain, I would have thought you would have been half thinking, well, surely I'm going to get a contract if they made me captain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
possibly. I mean, obviously that was down to the youth team manager, and yeah, I guess he has a big influence on the decisions that are made in terms of the contracts that are given out. But you're still sort of never sure. And Chris Hargreaves was actually only appointed sort of, I think, maybe 3 or 4 months before the end of that season. As we was, I think they were struggling in League Two, and unfortunately they didn't stay up and we got relegated. So yeah, I obviously spent a summer at home, went back, met with the gaffer again, and he basically sat me down and said, like, we're really excited, we're happy with our decision, but due to the relegation, we're looking for an experienced squad. It's not going to be a big squad, and we're going to try and go with as much experience as we can to try and get back out of the league and into League Two, which was completely fair enough. I never thought for a second that he was calling me in to tell me I was going to play every game, etc. So I'd actually agreed to go out on loan to Truro, where I'd spent 10 games of the previous season right at the end of the season, just to get me some sort of senior football experience playing at what would have been step 3 at the time, I believe. And that was a big eye opener. I remember the first ever game we played, I think it was against Hungerford. I was defending the front post at a corner, and one of the centre halves just came straight across me, elbowed me straight in the face, and just nodded it in the goal. But again, another experience that sort of put me in stead for where I am today. So yeah, agreed a 1 year loan with Truro, and I think I was basically training with Torquay during the day and then going to train of an evening with Truro or playing a pre-season fixture. But we was playing Taunton away. I think it must have been a Tuesday or Wednesday night, if you like. And I went into a tackle, hit a tackle, and thought, oh, something doesn't quite feel right. Tried to sort of run it off as you do, and couldn't carry on. So I came off about 10 minutes later. Physio had a look, didn't detect anything sort of too unusual, just sort of put it down to the impact. And I'd planned to drive home from Taunton because it was a little bit closer to London than what Torquay was. Got in the car, drove home, again, didn't think too much of it, woke up the next morning and my foot had like completely swollen up. Went down to the local fracture clinic in Cheshunt, had an x-ray, and they told me that I broke my metatarsal. So that was tough. Obviously, I'd gone from the emotions of signing a pro contract, being at home with all my friends, telling them that I'd sort of made or got to a position that I'd always wanted to. And then for that to happen, I felt like it sort of chewed me up and spat me back out, if you like. But I stayed positive. I thought I'm still young. People recover from injuries a lot better when they're younger. So I was put into a cast for 6 weeks, tried to do as much as I could in the gym. And Torquay were really good. They actually let me stay home during that period because there wasn't any physio that I could do because the foot was in a cast.
Yeah.
So I spent some time at home, was in the gym, as I said, doing some upper body stuff. Went to have the cast removed and went back to Torquay, and again, something still didn't feel right. Went and see a private doctor that was referred to by the club through the physio, and he basically told me that it was still fractured. So I then had to have an operation. Spent another 6 weeks in a cast, and then I think 6 weeks in a boot. So that sort of took me up to, I think it might have been Christmas time. And at that point, I wouldn't say I'd given up on my dream, because I never thought it was over, but it certainly derailed my motivation, if you like. It was tough for me at that age to understand why this had happened to me and not someone else. But tried to get as fit as I could. The Truro had actually sort of terminated the loan contract because they'd got another right back in, which was fine. Obviously, I had no qualms about that. And I went out on loan to a team called Bideford, and saw the rest of the season out with them. And unfortunately, my time as a pro, if you like, just sort of dwindled away, and wasn't offered another deal. Torquay didn't go back up. They stayed in the conference, and I think the budget at that point had been cut drastically as well. And from there I moved back home.
That must have been, I mean, what was you there? 17, 18, 19, somewhere around there?
I'd have been 18 at that. Yeah.
And how do you sort of get over that sort of feeling of, like, you got a professional club as such in Torquay, you're not going to extend your contract. It must have been dark days for you how did you manage to cope?
It was tough. I mean, you hear so many footballers, don't you? I mean, you talk about footballers that made it right at the very top that still didn't get to where they believed because of injury. But it is part and parcel of the game, and I think that was where my dad played a massive role in my life at that point, because he's quite a laid back character. He takes things as they come. He deals with situations when they arise. He never looks too far ahead and doesn't really think about what's happened before. And I can always remember him saying to me that, look, it's happened for a reason, and whatever that reason may be, it will only put you in good stead in your future. And at the time, it was hard to believe that. I was young. I just wanted to be out on the pitch with the boys and be improving and playing football every day. But again, like I said, he played a massive part in sort of my mental state at that point, and just kept me at it. And yeah, sort of, as I said, managed to get back from injury and spent the rest of the year on loan at Bideford, and actually had a really good time. Again, playing what I see now is a decent standard of football, step-free football, playing against some decent teams in the Southern League as well, St Neots and clubs, Met Police, Cambridge City, Histon, clubs like that. And again, I look back on it now, and I don't sort of ask questions as to why it all happened or what went wrong. I sort of look at it as, well, no, actually, that was good experiences that have got me to where I am today. So
you came back home, and I mean, whereabouts is actual home? Cheshunt?
No, so at that point, Enfield was home for me. So we lived in Enfield from when I started secondary school through to about 5 years ago. My mum and dad sold that house. So moved back to Enfield and actually lived on Ladysmith Road. So that is, if you're, I'm sure the town fans will know, as you come out of the stadium, you turn right, you walk down the alley past the rugby club, and there you are, you're on Ladysmith Road. Enfield was literally a stone's throw away. And I wasn't too sure what I was going to do. I wasn't sure if I was fully committed on looking for another pro club, maybe sort of finding a job. I just wasn't too sure. I think I had a couple of months where I didn't really do too much, and then it got to a point where I had no money, and I thought, well, I can't just sit at home all day. My friends were either sort of doing apprenticeships or playing football themselves for their respective clubs. And funnily enough, I got a message on Twitter from Bradley Quinton, who was the Enfield manager at the time. Messaged me and said, "Hello, Mick. See that you've just been let go by Torquay. Heard that you're a local lad. Would you be interested in coming over to train?" So for me at that point, it was a bit of a no-brainer. I hadn't been contacted by anyone else. I played in like a couple of, I think the PFA set up like a trial game, don't they, for lads that have just been released, but nothing sort of came of that. So yeah, that was sort of where my journey in non-league started. I went over to Enfield, trained with them for probably the first half of pre-season before sort of Brad turned around and said, we'd like to sign you, and sort of offered me a deal. And it was funny, actually. I always sort of tell this story to people that ask or don't know that I was actually on more money at Enfield than I was as a pro at Torquay, which wasn't a lot. I think maybe 150 quid at Enfield, something like that, when I first signed. But yeah, it was actually, I think my pro deal was £200 a week, but we had to, or £225 a week, but we had to pay £100 to the digs lady that we live with a week. So effectively, I was sort of earning more money in at step 3 than I was at step 1. So
what was that like going into Enfield? Was it a bit of a you know, in all fairness, a bit of a culture shock going into, you know,
yeah, it was sort of a step into the unknown, if you like, in terms of my first senior experience of football was being around the pro game, if you like. So sort of molded into that sort of fit of getting up and eating right and training right and going home, recovering, and then doing it the next day. Whereas obviously what I've learned now from being in non-league for 7-8 years is that it's completely different.
Pizza and beer, isn't
it? Yeah. And obviously just like the lads being probably a lot more older, a lot more settled in their lives, whether they were married or had kids, had jobs, coming to football on a Tuesday night. And yeah, like you said, just enjoying it, because it's that release, isn't it, from the normal world, if you like, which I'd never experienced before, because as I said, in the pro game, that is your life, if you like. So yeah, it was a big change, big, as you said, culture shock, but the group at the time was fantastic. I mean, I joined Enfield when they had the likes of Mark Kirby, Ryan Doyle, Joey Stevens, Stan Magoo, Nath McDonald, and it was a real tight-knit changing room. And it took me a little while, maybe because of my age or because I was maybe quiet at the start. It took me a little while to bond with them, but after a few months and sort of playing, and maybe that was part of the reason that I did bond with them, because I did play probably a lot more than what maybe they expected me to. And I've always sort of said as well that you bond good relationships with people in the changing room based on what they do on the pitch. I've found that from my experiences anyway, that if a player comes in and they're pretty tasty on the pitch and they're trying to do the right things for the team, then that builds a bit of a relationship between you as well. So yeah, it was a great group. Brad was a very, very good coach. Wanted to play in what people would call now the right way, if you like. Trying to play through the thirds. We was an exciting group. We had a lot of young players mixed in with, as I said, those senior boys, and had some really, really standout players as well. We had sort of the likes of Billy Crook, Corey Whiteley, Bobby Devine, Tyler Campbell. So it was a really good mix, and I really enjoyed it. I think we done quite well that season as well. I think we just missed out on the playoffs. I think we played Hampton and Richmond on the last day of the season, and we needed a point. Well, sorry, no, we needed 3 points to get into the playoffs. They needed a point to win the league, and I think we drew 0-0. But again, another good experience, because I saw them win it, and I saw how much it meant to them to win that level of football, which some people I think may look down on. But again, another good experience to teach me about what this level's about and what it means to people.
So, I mean, how long was you at Enfield for the first time?
So I was there for 4 seasons. So yeah, that was my first season. The second season was under Brad again. And the group had changed a little bit. Those sort of more experienced lads had moved on or retired or whatever. And it became a sort of really young group. And again, another good team. We did make the playoffs that year. I think we won 20 out of our last 22 league games to get there as well. So went on a fantastic run. But come unstuck against Dulwich in the semi-final. I mean, they battered us. I think we were 3-0 down inside 20 minutes in front of 4,500 people. I think we got it back to 3-2, and then they won the game 4-2. So it was quite convincing for them in the end. But again, yeah, it was another really good experience playing in front of probably the biggest crowd that I'd played in front of personally as well. And that was the year that Brad left and went to Braintree. And basically took everyone with him. I had a conversation with him. He sort of made me an offer, and obviously it was of some interest because it was obviously a step up and a step closer back to where I was before. But it was probably a combination of 2 things as to why I didn't go. One was probably the travel and the distance. And the second one was because I felt that, one, the reception and the feeling that I'd got from the Enfield fans during my 2 years from being a local lad and them sort of thriving on that and enjoying having someone local in the team. I just felt that I owed it to them to what, first of all, at least wait to see who the manager was. And it was someone who I know you made a really good relationship with during his time at the club was Andy. And I had a couple of conversations with Andy in the past. He actually tried to get me over to Cambridge City, I think he was at, when I was a little bit younger before I signed for Enfield. So to me, it was positive. I was going to stay at the club that I enjoyed playing for. I knew that the fans would be delighted, and I was going to be playing under a manager that was obviously interested in me because, like I said, he'd made an approach before. So yeah, stayed at Enfield. I think it was only me and one other that stayed, and Andy sort of had a big job on his hands. I think we struggled a little bit the first season. I think he come from the Southern League, which I do think there is a big difference. Yeah. Not necessarily in the standard, but the type of football. Yeah. Obviously, there's probably a collage of players that play in the Southern League and then a separate one that play in the Isthmian. It's just kind of how it works. I don't know why. That just seems to be how it is. So yeah, we struggled a little bit the first year. I think we finished maybe 14th, 15th, something like that. But the signs were there that he had a style of football. He wanted a type of player for each position. And the second season was a little bit better. I think we had a good FA Cup run. We finished middle of the pack, I think, in the league, and we won the League Cup, which is where the Hornchurch sort of move stemmed from.
So how did that come about then?
Yeah, so we played Hornchurch in the final of the League Cup. Stimo had only been there for since Christmas, I believe, so maybe 4 or 5 months. But I had a really good game. We won the game 2-0. I was sort of awarded man of the match as well, which was great. And literally no later than a week later, I had a phone call from Stimo saying we would love to have you at Hornchurch, which won through me because it was the first time I'd had sort of any sort of solid interest from another club. So that was nice. That was a good feeling to have that sort of acknowledgement from another manager in the league. But it was, do I want to leave a club that I've been loyal to and already said that I wouldn't leave, obviously the 2 years previous. But again, I met with Stimo and his knowledge for the game from his playing career and his sort of managerial career up to that point just enticed me, and I could tell that he was going to be beneficial for me, not just because of the team that I'm playing for, but as an individual. So yeah, that was when I signed for Hornchurch. So I'd done 4 years at Enfield and then moved over to Hornchurch.
What year was that you moved to Hornchurch?
Say that again, mate, sorry?
What year was that you moved over to Hornchurch?
So that would have been 4 seasons ago. So cool, what we're talking, 2019 maybe?
And
18, 19?
And boy, oh boy, was that the right decision? Now,
yeah.
I mean, what? I suppose a few questions about that, because I say we're running out of time with some of the stuff. But
yeah.
What is Stimo like to play for? Because he's got this stigma around him, hasn't he? As well, of being somebody that you very rarely see him do an interview. You very rarely get to see what he's like, unless I suppose you're a fan of that club, or if you're actually a player, you know, for that club.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the man, because I mean, his record is almost second to none, isn't it, in non-league football?
Well, I think that what you've just said there, Dave, I think that is what he is. He lets what he's done in football speak for himself, or itself, if you like. And the fact that he's won 5, I think it's 5 FA trophies, all with non-league sides, is with 2 step 3 sides, and I think Grays was step 2, and Stevenage maybe the conference. It's just like outstanding. But for me personally, it was he is the best manager that I've played under up to date. The way that he coaches is really good. He has, again, not he's not maybe someone that puts his arm around players or continues to encourage them, but he tells you the right things at the right time, and that's why it was so good for me. I didn't need a cuddle off of him to tell me that things were going to be all right. I needed him to tell me when I haven't done something right. But yeah, he is. People have their mixed opinions on him, but I can't fault him. And I had 4 really, really good seasons at Hornchurch, and probably one of the main reasons was because of him. He created a fantastic group. His coaching staff are great. Obviously, he's got Tony Gay.
I was going to say, you know, is his sort of Paul as well? You know, with his sort of should we say his little henchman? Tony, do you know what I mean? Is that the sort of thing with it as well? Because I mean, I know we spoke to Tony a few times on the Monday show and stuff, and you know, he still absolutely loves his football, even though he likes falling off of roofs at his house.
I know, that was a bit naughty, but no, it probably is, mate. To be fair, and I think that's why they work so well as a pair, if you like, because Stimo is serious. He's on the ball with what he wants to do when it comes to training or match day, whereas Tony's the complete opposite. They're like chalk and cheese. He's always having a laugh. He's always trying to make jokes. And yeah, it probably is part of the pull as to why players enjoy playing for Stimo, is because of Tony as well. And not just him. Tim, one of his coaches, Jamie, was the strength and conditioning coach at Hornchurch. I think he's actually stayed under the new manager. But yeah, I can't fault the way that Stimo was with me as an individual anyway.
So I suppose let's start with the Hornchurch side. I wouldn't say necessarily negative, because it's not necessarily negative. But I mean, how disappointed were you for the last 2 years of realistically, some people would say, oh, Hornchurch are going to win this. Do you know what I mean? And I go back to the first, not the season just gone, but the season before. You know, it still sticks in my mind as being one of the worst nights of my life. You know, when you come down to Enfield and, you know, and it looked like it was game, set, and match, and 2 sort of late goals from that rogue Mr. Nash, and I can't think of the other goal was from at the time, but it was just incredible that you thought you'd won it with about 5 minutes to go and you win that. I mean, that night must have been a great night as well.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a bittersweet one because, again, that connection that I have with Enfield. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to win a game, it's not a bad way to win it, is it? In the last minute. And it was funny because I don't know if it wasn't a personal feeling, but maybe a feeling of Hornchurch fans and people looking in from the outside was that we were going to win it. I mean, we were playing at home against Cheshunt, who had finished 5th in the league, and obviously they had to go to Stortford and beat them. So they done that and then came to ours and beat us. So they obviously deserved it. But yeah, there was massive disappointment. Massive disappointment. I felt that season we were really, really good. We scored bundles of goals. We were playing good football. And it all just looked like it was leading to the right result for us. But maybe rubber the green on the day, if you like. We went 1-0 down, we equalised. The geezers, I think Zach Newton scored probably the best goal he's ever scored in his career. And then we had a goal disallowed for a reason we still don't know with 2 or 3 minutes to go. So yeah, that was bitterly disappointing. And last season's one was slightly different in the fact that I don't think we turned up, to be honest, in the game against Aveley. We knew what they were going to bring. We knew the way that they wanted to play. We knew what their strengths were, which were their 2 centre-backs, and no shock that one of them has been signed by Hornchurch now, Scotty. And I just didn't feel that we'd done enough to present ourselves in the way that we knew we could last year. So in all honesty, the first year was probably tougher to take. The second year just felt like deja vu. It was just odd being in the same place on the same date with the same result. So yeah, it was bitterly disappointing. And I think for me personally, if I look back on it now, it probably would have made my decision a bit easier to have come back to Enfield as well. Because although if we'd have gained promotion with Hornchurch, obviously that excitement of playing the next step, it brings a lot more commitment, and I think that would have cemented my decision. So at the end of the season, trying to make that decision on whether to stay or whether to move to Enfield was probably made harder by the fact that they were still going to be in the same league. So yeah, it was two tough endings to the season. But I mean, although we didn't get what we wanted out of it, I still sort of see it as success. I mean, I got to play in a team that was full of fantastic footballers, great characters. Higo, who is probably the best striker that I've seen at this level. And we finished, I think, what was it, 4th the first season, or the first season that we lost the playoff final in, and second last season. So I still see it as somewhat a success. But yeah, obviously disappointing not to get over the line in the end.
Well, let's go back a couple of years, because probably Stimo's been at fault for 2 of the worst nights of my life when he was in charge of Thurrock and, of course, in the Hornchurch game.
Yeah.
But also probably in charge of probably one of my best days that I've ever had as in non-league. And supported Hornchurch, and hands up, not a Hornchurch fan at that at the time, but I think everybody was a Hornchurch fan on that on the 22nd of May 2021, because what you achieved on that day with the rest of your boys was just something sensational, wasn't it? I mean, talk us through the whole sort of, not necessarily the whole run, but talk us through sort of like, when did you get to a stage that Stimo was really sort of thinking, do you know what, we can win this?
I don't think he actually ever let on to us that he thought we could, but I do think that he thought we would, if that sort of makes sense. Obviously, from having the experience that he'd had winning it before, he probably knew when there was a certain feeling around the club and around the environment and in the changing room of what it would take to get there. But I think on a player perspective, it wasn't. I don't think we probably really started thinking about it until the quarterfinal, which was against a team called Darlington, which is up near Newcastle. At this stage as well, the Isthmian League and obviously all the other leagues at our level had been null and voided back in, I think it was November.
How difficult was that? Because you weren't playing any games.
No, it was tough.
I mean, you're just playing one-off games.
So right at the start of the run, must have been the second or third round, we weren't allowed to train. We weren't allowed to be with each other. And we had Maidstone, which was, again, like I said, maybe the 4th round, something like that, about 3 weeks after the league had been scrapped. So we wasn't really sure what was going on. We didn't know if that game would still be played, or if we'd see each other sort of at football again. And we got a sort of call or text, if you like, from the gaffer, and he said, look, the game's going ahead. The cup competitions are staying as their FA like competitions. They're being allowed to be played, as they've been granted, can't remember what it was, elite club status, I think they called it at the time. So we didn't train leading into the Maidstone game. We were also told that we wasn't going to be paid for the game, which we just sort of got together and said, well, look, like, we might as well do it. We're not going to see each other for a little while because of everything else that was going on in the world. We might as well get together and play a game of football. And I think that ended up 5-4, that game, something like that. It was one of the worst games. I actually watched the game. I was suspended. I'd been sent off a couple of rounds previous. It was one of the worst but best games that I'd ever watched. So we beat them. We then played Kings Lynn, which were a conference Prem side at the time, I believe. Beat them on penalties. Righty saved 3 penalties in a row, which was special. And then we went to travel to Darlington. So at this point, we'd been granted the elite club status. We'd been training sort of twice a week, I think we was doing, which was great because although it was a tough time for most people in the world, and look, we did have to be careful. Don't get me wrong. There were certain rules and regulations that we had to stick to, such as not all being in the same change room and stuff like that. But it was fantastic because it was like our release, if you like, away from what was going on. We travelled to Darlington the night before. We travelled up on the Friday night, stayed in a hotel together. And we beat them. I think it was 2-1, I think, in the end. Higo scored a penalty to win the game. And I remember just before that game, we were training on the Thursday, and a pal of mine, Ruffy, that was in the team, I said, if we beat Darlington, I think, on Saturday, I think we'll go all the way. And I remember that conversation I had with him, and it turns out that so it happened. So
who was the semi-final against for people?
Notts County. So I mean, that was, after saying that to Ruffy, we beat Darlington on the Saturday, and then the draw came out. It must have been on the Monday, if you like. And I think it was us, Notts County, Hereford, and I think they beat Woking, I think. So I mean, on paper, it was a Woking Notts County final, both conference prem sides, and for us, we was obviously playing away, so going up to that stadium was pretty special. And I don't think we had too many expectations. We knew what we wanted to do in terms of the way we wanted to play. We knew that we'd be defending for majority of the game, but we also knew with the forward players that we had that if we all had a good game, we'd always stand a chance. We went 1-0 down really early, and I sort of sensed that the boys were feeling that this may be the final hurdle. Righty made a massive save at 1-0. And the game sort of developed. We were 3-2 down with a minute to go and scored in the last minute. And I think fortunately for us and our legs, the game went straight to penalties. So Righty made one save, and then Dicko scored the winning penalty. We won on pens 5-4. And that was just, I don't think at that point I could put into words the emotions that not just I felt, but everyone, the boys, the staff, the directors and the chairman that had obviously travelled up to watch the game. It'd be really tough to sort of put that into words. It was just, everyone dreams of playing at Wembley in a competitive cup final, and we knew that dream was about to come true. So,
and then I mean, you then went on, to, of course, to Wembley on the what was it, the
Yeah.
22nd of May, 20. What was that like? That whole day going up there?
Yeah, incredible, mate. Unbelievable. We stayed in a hotel in St Albans, I think, the night before. Got the coach down there. We were a late kickoff. I think we kicked off at about 4 o'clock, something like that. So we all sort of sat in the hotel room the morning of, and we watched the FA Vars game, or parts of it on the TV, the first half of it. And then, yeah, got the coach down there. I remember pulling in. It's weird. I didn't even know that this entrance existed at Wembley, but where the coaches drive in and you sort of go all underground, and parked up, walked down into the changing room, into the dressing room, and that was pretty special. But I remember the first time we walked out onto the pitch, obviously still in tracksuits and stuff. That was like, wow, we're here now. And you just felt like you had to try and embrace all of it if you possibly could, which was tough. It was hard. I mean, I think that little period before the game was nice because we could see family and friends in the stands and we could wave and sort of say hello and stuff. But I mean, my personal reflection on the game was after the whistle went at the start and we played for a couple of minutes, it genuinely just felt like any other game. And it wasn't until we scored the third goal to make it 3-1 with about 5 minutes to go that I sort of just stood there I was running about still because the game was still playing. But
I still remember that sort of
fully
an
taking it in.
iconic picture of you in there, if I remember rightly, especially to the camera when.
Yeah, so when I'd just taken a throw on, and the cameraman actually rolled the ball to me to take the throw, threw it up the line. Ellis like span his man or whatever and ran on and scored. And yeah, it just sort of came over me. I turned around and ran up and kissed the camera. Wasn't even me that scored, but yeah, it was quite cool, and it was nice that they actually sort of put it on the highlights as well, so I got to see it.
So I mean, in the game, though, you went 1-0 down, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. But to be honest, mate, that was kind of a pattern of the run. We'd always seem to fall behind and somehow claw it back and win. So we was never really panicking, if you like. We didn't ever feel as though we'd lost the game. The gaffer made a massive call, I think, with about half an hour to go. And again, it goes back to his experiences and what he's done in the game up to that point. He actually subbed our captain, Louis Spence. And I can't remember who else he brought off. It might have been Higo. And we were all sort of looking at each other like, really? They're probably our two strongest players. Brought on Chris Dixon and Charlie Ruff, and it just completely changed the game. Took us up another level. We were playing higher up the pitch, pressing higher, winning the ball back higher, creating more chances. And yeah, we scored 3 goals. So,
of course, it was both of those that scored two of the goals. Called Charlie Ruff 75, Ashley on 86, and then 94 minutes for Mr. Brown. So yeah, incredible.
Yeah, Ruffy had a great impact, as well as Dicko did. To be fair, they both came on and really changed the game for us. But yeah, that was fantastic. I mean, it was funny. When the final whistle went, I sort of collapsed and fell on the floor and just couldn't really believe what had just happened. And I opened my eyes, and the first person I saw was my brother. And I was like, "What are you doing here?" And a few people had run on the pitch, and he was one of them, the donut that managed to run on the pitch. And I couldn't quite work it out. I thought I was already sort of in a bit of a dream. We just played at Wembley and won there, and now I've got my brother standing over me.
Well, I mean, that second half, 53 minutes it went on for, according to what I've got in front of me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's incredible. Because when you said to me, he still had, scored with 5 minutes to go, I'm thinking, but he scored on 94. That's what I'm glad to see how long it had been going on for.
Yeah, no, it did. It was a long second half. I remember Ellis scoring, and it felt like a long time anyway. At that point, it did feel like we were still on the pitch for quite a while because, like I said, it was a great time to sort of embrace what we'd done or what we'd achieved. And yeah, the celebrations after were fantastic. We got the coach back to the club, and the supporters and our family and our friends were all waiting for us. We had a sort of big do at the club, and yeah, a fantastic achievement, a great day. And a memory that will last forever.
So, I mean, you picked up something yourself, though, didn't you, in the game? You got a nice little yellow card as well, didn't you, in 95 minutes?
It don't surprise me. I mean, the only thing I'm glad I didn't do was get sent off. Because
So,
that would have been a catastrophe.
I mean, looking at the whole thing, must have just been, such a. We use it all the time now on the show, and we say to some of the teams that come on the show, what type of inspiration is Hornchurch to you when you go into into that now? Because you must think to yourself, well, hang on a minute, if Hornchurch can do it, there's no reason why another step-free side can't.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think there were definitely factors that played a part into maybe why we won it that year in terms of obviously the whole COVID rules and regulation. I mean, it might have benefited us that we weren't playing every week. Obviously, we only have small squads at this level, so it's not like the pro teams that have 23, 24-man squads to choose from. So that might have benefited us. We didn't have any injuries. Everyone was injury-free. We was playing one game a month. Maybe the fact that there was no fans at the games. I mean, if we'd have gone away to Notts County and they had 10,000 inside, we might have been a different story. So yeah, there was definitely different factors into it. But I 100% agree with what you just said, that good teams at this level have got every single chance. With a little bit of luck and a little bit of good fortune, there's no reason why they can't pit themselves up against some of the conference sides and go all the way.
Am I right in saying, now I might have got this wrong, and I know at the time there was a lot of things going on with COVID and everything, but will you definitely, and please don't take this the wrong way, this is going to sound, but will Hornchurch go down in record books as the shortest reigning trophy winners, or was it the year before? I know there was two very quick.
Yeah. So the year before, it was Concord Rangers that made it to the final, and they played against Harrogate Town, I believe. The game was cancelled because of COVID. Harrogate had won the conference, I believe, or won the playoffs. They played a whole season in League Two.
That's right.
And then played the FA Trophy final against Concord, who had I think they may have had 3 or 4 players from the actual existing squad that got there. So it was actually Harrogate. Their game was, I think, a week before ours or 2 weeks before ours.
I know there was a place where it just went bang bang very, very quickly.
Yeah.
We used to laugh and joke with Dave Anderson, of course, and we used to say to him with Chertsey that he's in the record books as the longest ever reigning FA Vars champion, because I think it went on for nearly 2 years before they actually another game got played again. So, brilliant. I mean, you come sort of the end of that, and of course, Stimo then, has been moved on, shall we say, and it's gone to Grays. So I know he's probably taken quite a few Grays, so Hornchurch players, maybe a few of them anyway, over to Grays. Not something that you looked at straight away, or was you offered that opportunity straight into?
You know what? I at the end of the season, obviously we had the disappointment of losing the playoffs, and I just wanted a bit of a break, sort of mentally, if you like, away from football. I didn't want to think about it too much. I just sort of assumed that Stimo would still be there and I'd still be there, and we'd have another go at it next year. As I mentioned earlier, I got married in the summer, so my focus and all of my time and effort sort of shifted towards that and trying to help the missus out, because I hadn't done anything for 2 years. Like I said, I'd sort of put football on the back foot, if you like. And then the news broke that Stimo had been sacked. Obviously, Andy had departed Enfield as well, and it sort of rung a bit of a bell in my head, and I thought, well, maybe it wouldn't be a bad time to go back to Enfield. But I didn't want to make any rash decisions. I was fully intended on waiting until Hornchurch had appointed a new manager. Obviously, Enfield had appointed Gav at that point, but I hadn't had any sort of interaction with him before. I'd never met him, hadn't really heard of him too much. It just a few weeks went past and nothing really happened for me. I then played in Neil's testimonial at Enfield, which was a great day, and so sort of pleased that the club put that on for him, because he's a great asset to the club and someone that deserves every minute of praise that he gets. But yeah, I played in the game, and Reedy actually sort of spoke to me in the bar afterwards and said, would you would you be interested in coming back? We'd love to have you back. I said, mate, I haven't even thought about it. I don't know who the Hornchurch manager is. I haven't had a conversation with anyone. But I said I'd be happy to have a conversation. So he put me in touch with Gavin. Gavin got in touch with me, and I went and met him. And as you alluded to earlier, the way that he spoke and delivered his style of play, his interaction with the players, and how he wants his team to be portrayed was something that really excited me. Not just as a team, but the way he wants his fullbacks to play was, again, something that I felt that would benefit me. So, funnily enough, the first person I called after I'd met with Gav was Stimo. Gave him a call. I said, look, he hadn't been offered the job, I don't think, at that point. I called him, I explained the situation, I told him that I'd been over to Enfield to have a conversation, and I said, but I'd quite like to see where maybe sort of you go as well as maybe an option. And he basically just said to me, look, I'm not 100% sure what's going on. I don't know where I'm going to be or what I'm going to do. He said, my only advice to you would be to go and make the decision that feels right and feels the best suited to you. And a couple of weeks had passed. Hornchurch had still not appointed anyone. Stimo had been given the job at Grays, but that wasn't something that really interested in me. I wouldn't have travelled around that side of the M25, to play for Grays in the league below, and I could have stayed at Hornchurch. So that was not really an option, mate. As much as I would have liked to have spent some more time playing for him. I met again with Gav. We had a second conversation, and it just felt like the time was right to come back to the club and hopefully be a part of a successful stint under Gav.
I think everybody at the club is extremely excited to see you back. I mean, you're almost like a Ronaldo to them. Do you know what I mean? That's the type of thing, so it's like you coming back into the team. And of course, also as well, it's going to be great seeing how the new team gets on under Gavin, starting on, well, you'd have played a game before this comes out. Of course, you'd have played a couple of games before this comes out, because it's Queen's Park Rangers and Tottenham in the first two games. So it'll be an interesting start.
Not looking too much forward to them, because I know we're going to be chasing shadows.
It's only Tottenham.
They're good. They're really good experiences, mate. I remember when I was at Enfield before. I think the Spurs fixture has always been one that they have in, where you play against the 18s or the 21s.
You've got to look for an easy game to start with, haven't you? That's what it is.
Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly. But no, they are good games, and I'm just looking forward to playing in front of the Enfield fans in an Enfield shirt again. Obviously, I've been back. Well, it had been 3 or 4 times since being at Hornchurch, and to be fair, they always gave me a half decent reception, a little bit of banter, a little bit of stick, but generally they were all sort of always happy to see me and see me doing well. But yeah, I think it was definitely nice to read some of the comments that, first of all, I'd had from Hornchurch fans to sort of wish me well and say how much they appreciated my time and efforts. But to see the Enfield reaction was phenomenal, and it sort of almost cemented my decision and made me feel as though I'd made the right one.
Well, listen, Mickey, it's been fantastic spending this last hour with you. Stay on, because I've got a question to ask you afterwards. But a massive thank you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate that.
No, thank you, mate.
It's been a great hour.
Look forward to seeing you around the club. Yeah. Sure. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
From me and from Mickey, then it's a good night. But of course, we're coming up to the end of our second season, and our next episode is going to be somebody that was one of the first female managers in non-league football, and we're going to have the pleasure to speak to Stanway Pegasus manager Rosie Webb in our next issue. So that is going to be a fantastic chat. So we'll look forward to that one. But from me and from Mickey, until next time, good night.